Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Felix Bivens here with welcoming back the Honorable Chido Madiwa from Zimbabwe for our second episode of the Regeneration series. If you saw the first episode, we had an interview with Chido in March of this year. And now we're circling back and catching up with her 6 months later, and now things are a little bit different. Cheeto, it seems like it was only yesterday that I was there in Harare getting to see you, but now things are quite different. So tell us how you are.
Hello, Steve. Yes, it's like the last time you came here. It's not very far anyway. It's hardly 6 months down the line, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's quite a short time, but within the very short time, a lot has happened. Things have changed, and I'm sure everywhere, not only here, even in your case, things have changed. That just within that very short space of time. So, but I want to thank God I'm fine and my family is okay, and I'm trying to be safe. And
yeah,
I hope the same with you. Yes.
yeah. Well, welcome back. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And I also just want to say congratulations. You are now the proud grandmother of a baby girl who just came about 2 weeks ago. So congratulations, Cheeto. That's really exciting news, and congratulations to you and your daughter and your whole family.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
Well, the big news, obviously, since we saw you in March, has been the arrival of COVID-19 everywhere in the world. So, why don't you tell us a little bit, how has COVID affected everyone there in Zimbabwe?
Yes, we are in difficult times. Like I said, I can imagine when you last came here, and I came to the airport. I was with you, and it was all fine, and there was nothing to be afraid of. But this time, just within the very short space of time, things have changed, and not only here in Zimbabwe, but globally, uh, things have changed because of this COVID-19, which has affected almost every nation, and Zimbabwe is not spared. And it's a matter of changing lifestyles. It's a matter of changing the way we live, the way we interact, customs. And imagine, for example, at my age, I've learned certain customs. I've learned to interact with my people. I've learned to be with my people. And all of a sudden, things have changed, and I'm not. I cannot necessarily say I'm not allowed, but I have to make sure I'm away from those I love. I'm away from friends and relatives. I can't go out for a drink, which people used to do. So it's a whole change of lifestyles, which maybe as adults is difficult to adapt to say really. I've for all these years, I have to all of a sudden I have to change the way I live. I have to say change the way I do things. It's a really it's not an easy thing to think of or to do. Like like any other nation, Zimbabwe is not spared. And you know what comes with COVID-19, the kind of resources that have to be pumped to the whole process of managing this crisis that everyone is in. And as a small country like Zimbabwe, it becomes a mammoth task. Mind you, we were just coming out of a drought. We're just coming out of Cyclone Idai, which destroyed a very a great chunk of our country, and the resources yet to be channeled towards managing the effects of Cyclone Idai. And now this is coming again, COVID-19, which is threatening communities, threatening lifestyles, I mean, threatening lives, and how the government has to make sure that it manages all things. Hello, Felix.
Yeah, we're still connected. You're fine. But Chido,
Let
all of us are. Go ahead.
let me. I'm trying to. Some my phone is connected to this, so I'm trying to bar calls coming in here.
Okay, sure.
Hello.
Yep, we're still connected.
Hello.
Chido,
Yes. Yeah. Let's
good.
continue. Yes. Let's
Sure,
continue.
no problem. Well, I think
Okay.
that
I'm sorry about
just
that one. I'm
no,
sorry
no
about.
problem. No problem. I think your phone ringing is just indicative. If anyone missed our initial conversation, Cheeto is a member of parliament there in Zimbabwe. So I mean, I think all of us are struggling, with what's happening this year. But I think as somebody who's a newly elected, government leader, elected official, that's got to be an extremely heavy responsibility. So what kind of what kind of things have been put in place by the government to manage the pandemic? How has the government tried to manage what's happening there with the virus?
Okay, government has tried its best in trying to make sure that they manage the spread of this virus. For example, to start with, government has established the, I mean, institutional mechanisms in terms of managing COVID-19. We have a national task force in place. We have at every level, a provincial task force, district task force, so that at any level there are people who are there to manage COVID-19. So we have, in terms of institutional mechanisms, we have structures that have been put in place, committees that have been put in place at every level to make sure that they manage COVID-19, be it, for example, in terms of awareness, in terms of distribution of, I mean, uh, uh, sanitizers, be it masks, PPE. The quarantine centers are up to standard and are up to the expectations of they are meeting, for example, World Health Organization standards. So these are some of the mechanisms that government has put in place, and the uh, government has also tried to curb mobility. I'm sure all countries have locked it down their countries at a certain period. So Zimbabwe also, the Zimbabwean government was also made sure that there was a lockdown. No one was allowed to move. Is allowed to move in and out of the country. There's an element of curbing mobility even within the country. People are not just free to move from point A to point B, and this is all in the interest of the public. And uh, so you can, of course, people will still need certain services, and government has come up with certain services or certain kind of businesses that are allowed to operate, so that at least people's lives are not affected in terms of access to food, in terms of, we are in agricultural based country. People would still need to carry on with their agricultural activities. So some of these businesses remained open during the lockdown, so that at least people can still do their farming businesses. Uh, Critical areas were spared from the lockdown. But of late, government also introduced a curfew, whereby people are expected to move from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And after that, no one is allowed to move. You cannot just move willy nilly. And this has been happening throughout the country. But of course, shops now. Last time they were closing around 4:50, like supermarkets, but this has been changed to 3 p.m. So all shops will be are expected to be closed at 3 p.m. All shops close. So this is an effort to make sure, in an effort to make sure that at least the people are not just moving from point A to point B, and I mean from from within certain areas, or within certain parameters, so that at least at the end of the day, with the spread of the virus, it's an effort to curb the spread of the virus. So these are some of the efforts that government has put in place, and the awarenesses have been going on social media, on the radio, on television, everywhere. Even myself, as a member of parliament, I'm also making sure that I this information goes to people in my constituents. It is I would like to say, as of now, even any person is aware of COVID-19. People are aware of the consequences, or they know what they're supposed to be doing in terms of protecting themselves. So, and this is because of all the awarenesses that we have been carrying out, that the government has been carrying out using different kinds of media. So there's a lot that government has put in place to make sure that the pandemic is controlled, and as well as coming up with quarantine centers at in all provinces, in most hospitals. And we have government has actually turned some of our vocational training centers, colleges, into quarantine centers. And in this case, this was the quarantine centers, like the teachers' colleges, the vocational training centers that were turned into quarantine centers. These were meant for those people who were now coming back home. Like we have a very big population of Zimbabweans in South Africa, in the nearby countries. So on the onset of COVID-19, people wanted to come back home. So these were people this is where they were quarantined and tested, whether they were released after their 21 days in quarantine. So these are some of the efforts government really wanted to make sure that everyone who is coming in was tested and was quarantined. But of course, one disadvantage that we have as a country is that some of our borders are very porous, and this is one reason that is seen maybe the rise of COVID-19, because some people will just cross without going through the proper uh, entry points, and in that case, in an effort maybe to not to go through quarantine. So in that case, it became a threat for our population in terms of those people coming in just straight away and mixing with the communities here in Zimbabwe. But of course, we have been carrying out awarenesses. Like in my constituency, we border with Mozambique, and I've carried out awarenesses to say, okay, everyone, you are your brother's keeper. If you see someone who has crossed the border illegally and you know that person, please, let's make sure that we report the person before they spread COVID-19. So those are some of the efforts at local level that we also do to make sure that we curb this pandemic.
What is your sense that all these efforts have been effective? Have the infections been fairly well controlled thus far?
Yeah, government is trying its best to control infections, but like I've said, we have cultures that we are used to as a people, as Zimbabweans. We are used to, being with people, funerals. If someone dies, we are used to spending an overnight. Overnight we are with our dead person. We are bidding farewell. Everyone gathers to pay their last respect. The cultural, that's how we are. And this is a threat now when it comes to COVID-19. You can't expect thousands of people. I remember this other day there was a funeral in my constituency, and I called to say, please don't attend the funeral. We just need the relatives of the dead. Let them just bury their dead, and so that at least we are not exposing ourselves to this virus. But people were telling me, member of parliament, we have thousands of people gathered to pay their last respect. These are cultures, and if people see you, they're not attending a funeral, they will say, "What's wrong with this person?" And these are some of the cultures that we have to change. We are used to that, but on the onset of this COVID-19, these are some of the things that we have to change as a as a people. We really need to protect ourselves, not to expose ourselves. But like I was saying, all these years you were practicing a certain kind of culture, and all of a sudden you are told you are not supposed to be to be gathering for a funeral. You are not supposed to be helping your neighbor to bury their dead. It becomes awkward. But I'm sure with time people will learn to accept that this is the new era that we are into, and we really have to live with what we have, to live or to we just have to accept that things have changed, and we cannot be living in yesterdays.
Yeah, it's a challenging time everywhere. People have, as you say, they have their culture, they have their ways of operating and socializing, and people are very social in all parts of the world. So to sort of move into complete isolation is just really a difficult thing to wrap your head around, particularly when it's unclear for how long. It's a very slow-moving pandemic that could be going on for a very long time. Well, those of you who joined us for our last conversation with Chido know that she is a long-time, very effective advocate for women. She had a long career in the Ministry of Women's Affairs before she became a member of Parliament. Chido, just in your analysis, looking at your constituency and looking at what's happening around the country, how has the virus affected men and women differently? How are they experiencing some of the challenges that have happened? And are there any differences between what men and women have experienced thus far in Zimbabwe?
Yes, let me say yes. The pandemic has affected women and men differently. To start with, let me say, if we look at our Zimbabwean economy at the moment, it's driven by the informal sector. And in this case, the informal sector, most people who are in the informal sector are women. Already, in that case, it means women have been affected, because we are talking of the lockdowns, we are talking of the measures that have been put in place to make sure that people do not move from place to place. We are talking of issues of gender-based violence. We are talking of issues of women, because of their reproductive role. They are the ones who are running around to make sure that there's food on the table for their families, and they have been affected a lot. They are the ones who fetch firewood. They are the ones who are supposed to make sure that there is water access, water is available for their families, food is available. And like I have said, they are the ones who are running around to make sure that there's food on the table for their families. And
Chido, we have lost you momentarily. Hopefully you'll come back.
hello,
Chido, we lost you for a moment.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? All
Yep,
right.
you're reconnected.
All right.
So, yeah. So you were saying a bit about the impacts on men and women and how they're distinct, and the women in the informal economy,
Yes.
and how it's impacted them.
Yes. So when the women, I'm saying, okay, well, I'm saying our economy is driven by the informal sector, and most of the people in the informal sector are women. They are the ones who are doing their small businesses here and there to make sure that there's food on the table for their children. And nationally, the informal sector is driving our economy. So when people are not allowed to move, there's a lockdown. People are not allowed to move from this district to the other district. There's no, for example, transport is very much controlled, and people have no transport to move. For example, from where they are producing their wherever they're producing their products to the market, there's a lot that they miss in that there's no market for their produce. They can't move from point A to point B. So, and in this case, most of these people who are doing this are women. In most cases, men are found in the formal sector. They are employed maybe in the cities. They're employed in the capital. They also cannot move to to the rural areas where their families are. So in this case, uh, those are some of the negative impacts that COVID is bringing to men and women. For example, I was talking to people in my constituents. People are producing bananas. They are producing, and women in most cases move from my constituents to Harare to sell their bananas, but because of the lockdown, they couldn't do that. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of wastage that has happened to their produce. They can't sell their produce, so it's either the bananas are rotting, the tomatoes are rotting, and at the end of the day, there's no food on the table for their families. When there's no food on the table, what does that mean? Resources are now limited in the. Let's look at the household level. There's no food in the household, and now the husband, for example, let's say the husband is there or the wife is there. Their wife is now saying, okay, so what are we supposed to be providing food here? So we have seen a lot of rise in gender-based violence in our communities, whereby people, and I mean, to start with, people are not used to be staying together for a long time. For example, during the lockdown, you're expected to be, I mean, you are home from morning to the next day to the next day. So, and the people were not used to that kind of life. People were used, the husband will be doing whatever they are doing to make sure that there's food on the table. The wife is also doing whatever they are doing, be it selling tomatoes, be it selling bananas, and then they meet in the evening with whatever they bring to the family. But in this case, there's no market, there's nowhere to sell, they can't travel because there's a lot of gender-based violence. Actually, in Zimbabwe, we experience an increase in gender-based violence. And to make matters worse, they can also not travel to the nearest, maybe, let's say, police station. Now we are talking of access to justice for, say, victims of gender-based violence. In most cases, and these are women, they can't travel because there's also a lockdown. There's no transport. The local maybe police is kilometers away from where they are staying. So these are some of the issues that were that these are some of the issues that people experienced during the lockdown. We also want to talk of how women are affected culturally here. Women are the ones we are. Let's talk of access to energy. Access to energy, whatever to prepare. For example, we want to prepare your food at home, and who is supposed to be bringing firewood? I mean, in the household, women in most cases gather firewood to bring it. And these are some of the, they can't travel to make sure they have I mean, they can't travel far away to look for firewood because there was a limit in terms of the radius where people can go and fetch firewood. And these are some of the issues that we are trying to look at to say, okay, how best can we make sure that there's access to energy for every household in Zimbabwe, to make sure that when we have crises like this, there's no one gender that is mostly affected. Because in this case, in culturally here, women are expected to cook for the family, but men are expected to be doing the household chores. So these are some of the issues that we are trying to to look for firewood. Okay, those in the rural areas can look for firewood, but what of those in the urban areas? But I'm glad that, of course, we had experiences where we were having um, uh, electricity problems. But during the lockdown, government made sure that electricity was available for every household, and this now became easier for women to prepare food, because this is a women's issue. Preparing food is a women's issue, and issues of energy now becomes important, because they are the ones who are supposed to be to make sure that they cook the food, and then the energy is
We lost your connection again, Chido. We'll just wait out. See if you get back on.
Hello?
You're back. You're back, Chido.
Yes, I'm back.
All right.
Yes.
Very good. Well,
so
yeah. So clearly, there's a lot of impact on women. Let's just zoom in and talk about you. You know, you're one of the few female parliamentarians in Zimbabwe. There's not very many elected women. How is that affecting you? I mean, politics is a very social activity, lots of gatherings. You're always in your constituency. I know you drive home from, well, normally you would drive home from Harare to your constituency to meet with your voters every week, to meet with all the citizens in your area. How is this changing how you're able to interact?
It's really,
yeah.
It really has affected me, Felix, honestly, because when I interact with my people, when I get to see my people, this is where I get to have those issues that I'm supposed to take up for parliament, or for government for government's attention. But now I'm not. I also have to make sure that I protect myself. I don't have to expose myself in terms of having gatherings, having meetings in the villages. And it's also very tricky, because people are used to meeting me. They are used to say, okay, the member of parliament is coming in this village. Let's all go for a meeting. And if that is not done, they don't really understand. So why are we not having meetings? Why are we not meeting the member of parliament? Those traditions that I was talking about, to say, okay, we really have to gather and agree that this is a problem in our community. So how can it be addressed? Member of parliament, can you take it up for government's attention? And these are some of the challenges. Now I have to make sure that I rely with people on the ground to say, okay, what issues now can you, because even the COVID issues, if whatever our current environment, I really have to be on the ground and listen to what people are saying in terms of managing COVID-19, in terms of the environment that they're living, for government's attention, so that they also get assistance from government. In terms of for the PPEs in the clinics, in my constituents, how are the front officers protected? How is my hospital faring in terms of, because the district hospital in my constituency is also a quarantine center, and they also have at one point they had about eight people who were positive. And these are some of the issues that I have to really be following, so that I also take them up for government's attention. But how am I supposed to, now that I also want to protect myself? I don't want to expose myself with even if I'm a member of parliament, I cannot be seen to be gathering and meeting people because I'm a member of parliament. No, I also have to protect myself, but I have to come up with systems so that at least I am always getting information from, just like we are doing here, I'm telling you what is happening here. The same is happening with me. I also get in touch with people in every village, in every ward. I make sure that I have people on the ground that I will be communicating with, so that they give me information to say, okay, this is what is happening. And I'm happy they are really doing that. I remember 2 weeks, is it last week, when I got a call from my furthest ward, telling me that, member of parliament, I've seen someone, this person was in Mozambique and now he is around. I don't know whether this person has been tested or so, that kind of information I quickly relay to the relevant authorities, so that at least they address and they make sure that that problem is addressed. So I also have systems like that, just like we are doing. And in most cases, I'm using telephone. I'm phoning my people to say, okay, what are we doing, and see what's happening. And they tell me we have a funeral in the ward, and I'm quickly to say, no, please don't go there, don't gather. Let's just have skeleton people, a skeleton. A few members of our community help with the. With the bearing of whatever. Our friends. Let's not go there in our hundreds like we are used to be doing. So these are some of the issues, but it's not easy because people are used to seeing you. People are used to be meeting you and telling you face to say physically, telling you their problems and what they expect you to be doing. But this is now different. And I'm sure they are accepting that we are living in different times, and we really have to adhere to what we are being told in order for us to manage COVID.
Yeah, yeah, very, very difficult everywhere, and so many things to consider, and so many different professions that this impacts everyone, no matter your status, whether you're a farmer or a seller of vegetables on the side of the road or a member of parliament. We're all having to do things incredibly different and learn different ways of handling ourselves. Just one last question for you, Chido. This is changing to a different topic, because in spite of COVID, history is still happening. There are still things happening everywhere in the world that are significant. For those who are not familiar with the story of Zimbabwe, until 1980, Zimbabwe was a British colony called Rhodesia. Zimbabwe was one of the last countries to get its independence. That was in 1980. For those of you who are 40 years or older, to help put that in some cultural context, Bob Marley played at the independence celebration, and Prince Charles was at the independence celebration. So people that are still very well known, this is not 1940s India's independence. This is a much more recent thing that happened in Chido in our lifetime, that Zimbabwe became an independent state. So this is a really new country. The country is still becoming its own system and developing all of its infrastructure over the last 4 decades. Robert Mugabe was the president for most of that time. And one of the processes that he put in place starting in the 80s, but really accelerated around 2000, was redistribution of land, because there had been so much white colonization and so much white land ownership. The ownership of land, particularly farmland in Zimbabwe, was very concentrated by white settlers. And so Mugabe began to redistribute land, and around 2000, he began to break up the commercial farms and redistribute that land to small stakeholder farmers. That's a very controversial move. A lot of people, though, also say it's been very successful. People like Ian Scoons, who studied it for 15, 18 years, say it's actually been a very effective mechanism for those smallholder farmers. But I think it's also been controversial in terms of how it operated. So, Chido, can you say a little bit about some of what's happened recently? Because I think Parliament and the government has decided to pay some restitution to the white landowners. So tell us a little bit what's happened recently with that process.
This has been a very controversial issue, the issue of land. But of course, I'm happy my government has been on top of the situation in terms of managing this kind of problem. You see, this has been the source of all the problems that we are having here in terms of people getting land. And you talked well when you said uh, when you talked about our independence, how we got our independence. The reason for Zimbabwe to go to fight for Zimbabwe, the reason was land. People wanted land. You know, in Zimbabwe, if you look at history, our colonizers drove all people from fertile land. More than 80% of Zimbabwean land was owned by a very few population of the white population. And the majority of our people were driven to very dry areas in Gokwe, and most of our people died because those areas were not supposed to be occupied by human beings. These were areas left for animals and wild animals, but because of the colonial era, these areas were seen to be most of our black people were driven into those areas. So now people fought for their independence, they fought for their land, which we gained in 1980 through our independence. And see, the issue of land was still there. People still need their land. And when we the 2000 land reform began, I'm sure it was all over. You also heard about it. It was not also, it did not come in a silver platter. There was a lot of disgruntlement, a lot of fighting, a lot of, because someone, I mean, the whites felt it's their resource that is being taken away from them. But history was looking at a resource that was taken from blacks, and they simply wanted their land back. So, you know, it means there was some disagreement, there was some fighting, there was some disgruntlement, and and a lot of conflict, of course, between the whites and the blacks. And it has seen some whites running away from Zimbabwe, saying this, we can't live in this area, in this country where the people take away people's land. But that was not correct. The whole process actually started with very good negotiations. What can we do to make sure that we distribute land to everyone equally? But you know, no one was coming up to say, okay, can you take this land? You'll find some white people, they had 7 farms, one with 4 farms, 5 farms, when the blacks were just having a very, maybe less than an acre piece of land. When we have one person with one white person with thousands of and thousands of hectares of land. So it was just a way of trying to distribute land equitable and fairly to everyone, which was not which was not welcomed by the whites. So when the 2000 land reform process began, it saw a lot of blacks getting land. It saw a lot of white people losing some of their land. Those who were cooperative still have their pieces of land, but a lot of a lot of blacks found themselves getting farms, getting pieces of land which they did not have in the past. And you know, the whites felt aggrieved. They felt, no, 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 this is unfair. How can I have developed this farm, but someone is just coming to take away this from me? And I like now the recent policy on compensation of white farmers. I'm sure you know it's all in a spirit of making sure that there is peace, there's some settlement of, because someone is feeling aggrieved. I've developed this area, someone is here, they've just taken this piece of land. It's not a matter of paying for the land, it's paying for the developments that have been done. And I'm sure the whole effort is to make sure that no one goes aggrieved, no one feels I'm not being catered for. I like the whole process because it's not one sided. It's looking at whoever is feeling aggrieved, and whoever has taken land to say, okay, you have benefited the land, but government is saying, okay, let me let's make sure that we compensate those who were there, who developed this piece of land. It's not paying for the land, but those who have developed the piece of land. Although, someone could have said, if this was, for example, if it had been put to the people to say, what do you think in terms of compensating white farmers? I'm sure most people would have said, why should we compensate them? In the first place, when they came, did they compensate our forefathers when they were driven off this land? But we are talking about people, about a government which is looking at the spirit of peace building, a spirit of living together. To say, okay, no, we can't just ignore. Let's make sure that we compensate. I was looking. I'm sure you have looked at the how the Namibians have rejected the German compensation offer over colonial violence. I'm sure you have been following that Namibia is actually rejected the 10 million euro offer that is by the Germans. They are looking at what was done to their population, the heroes, the people that have been killed, and they are rejecting this. But here we are saying, okay, and it's the opposite actually here. Here we are paying those people who actually exploited our people on the farms. The blacks were the workers. They were highly exploited. We are looking at minerals extractions that have been done on all these farms. We are looking at the labor. These were blacks that were working on these farms. And we are saying, still the government is saying, no, we still need to compensate them for the development, unlike what is happening in Namibia. So I'm looking at a government that is very sensitive to how other people, to everyone, to everyone's issues. They are sensitive that we have this population that feels they've been disadvantaged. Let's compensate them. But otherwise, if you have to, if you had, or if we had to take a referendum to say, can we compensate these people? You'll find people would have said, no, we cannot compensate. These people exploited us. They exploited for years. We have been working on these farms, cheap labor, mineral extraction, and everything. But I say to myself, oh, we have a very sensitive government that is for peace building, for doing away with conflict. That's why they are saying, let's come up. That's why they came up with this policy, the 3.5 billion compensation for white farmers. It's all in a spirit of managing conflict, making peace with everyone, so that at the end of the day, no one feels aggrieved. So I actually applaud my government, although because if it was me, I was going to say I cannot compensate people who have exploited me for all these years. But I'm actually applauding my government for doing that.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's a serious sum of money considering it's a relatively small population of people in terms of the number of
Yeah,
people who
yeah,
are
yeah.
landowners. 3.5
Understand?
billion USD equivalent is a significant sum of money in general, and for Zimbabwe, it's a significant sum of money. So they're definitely putting
I
some
know.
money where their mouth is in terms of we're trying to find some sort of balance for what was done on both sides of this. It's very complicated, a very complex situation, but I think it's
It
worth
is. It is.
everyone in the world looking at because there's not another location in the world where this kind of process has happened. And to some people it may seem very far away, but it's not that different than the U.S. I mean, obviously, I'm here in Middle Tennessee. This was the land of the Cherokee, the First Nations people, and there's a lot of conversations, a lot of things happening in the Supreme Court right now in the U.S. around the what authority the Native people still have to these lands that were originally their land, even the reservation lands that they were moved to. So these conversations are very much alive, and of course, certainly with the Black population in the U.S., we've been talking about this a lot in our organization that Black farmers in the United States have lost 90% of the land that they owned just 100 years ago, that they owned such a minuscule amount of land compared to what they did in the early 1900s. And what does that mean in terms of the future of Black land ownership, and questions around reparations and what it means to create a more just society. And so I think we're, trying to struggle with those questions in the U.S. and other colonial settled countries around the world are also asking those questions. So I think Zimbabwe has a really, really important place for us all to look and learn and see what's been going on for the last 40 years and the different sort of negotiations and different processes that have happened. I think it's really important to learn from what you all have tried to do, struggle, successes all together. It's very important for us to learn from the work that you all have done, and it's exciting to see that conversation continue and that work is continuing to be done on it. So I'm interested to see how these next steps unfold and how this new step by the government is responded to by the farmers and how it all plays out in the long run. So good luck to you and the government in seeing this through and working through the next steps in the process.
Thank you, Skip.
Well, Chido, I want to say thank you for your time this morning. I know we tried 2 or 3 times to make this work. The connections had been bad. I know you've been out in the rural areas, and this has been a challenge for us to be able to get sufficient internet to have the conversation. But I really appreciate you making the space to do it and catching us up on what's happening in your country. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to your family, your new grandchild, and God bless everyone there in Zimbabwe. I hope that the pandemic moves very lightly and that everything that you all are doing to manage this is very effective, and that you're able to come through this with minimal impact on your citizens and on your economy.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you, Skip. I also look forward to talk to you in the near future.
All right, great. Chido, thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you. And thanks to everyone for tuning in and listening today. We've been with the Honorable Chido Madiwa coming to us from Zimbabwe. Thanks for tuning into the Regeneration series, and we will see you all next time. Thanks so much, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.